So welcome everybody to our session. We are so excited to do this. We had a lot of fun putting this together. Maybe too much fun, but no such thing, exactly. So the name of our presentation is UDL My Choice, Perspectives and Conversations on Scaffolding and Choice Making. So I'll just do like a little quick, I guess like introduction. I'm a doctoral candidate at California State University, Los Angeles. I'm working on my dissertation. It's on UDL, so UDL enthusiast, I guess. And do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Denia is too modest. She's actually an UDL expert. I'm Andrew Dell'Antonio. I teach music history at UT Austin, and I am definitely a UDL beginner to intermediate, but very interested in questions of UDL in the music history classroom. And my piece of the information I'll be presenting will be about that a little bit later in our hour.
Cool. And then anytime if from this session, whatever you gather, you want to share, please share on Twitter and use this hashtag UDLHE, UDL Higher Ed. Oops. Oh, there we go. So the next screen. Feel free to reference these guidelines as we go through the presentation. I know I refer to them when I, share about my piece. So that's there. It's also on our shared notes page. Has that been shared in the chat yet? Yes? Uh-oh.
I'm sorry, I muted myself. I did share it and I'll share it again.
Oh, okay. I'm just curious. All right.
Yeah.
So I am, oops, did I go too far? How do I go back? Well, give me a second. Sorry, y'all. Uh-oh. Apologies. This is where I wanted to be. Outcomes. And then I want to get the captioning in again. Okay. So participants will learn about the unique challenges music students experience in higher education. We'll engage in discussion about similarities or differences across disciplines through multiple means of action expression, through group discussion, in breakout chats, and in the chat box. We're going to share experiences with similar situations through interactive technologies, as you will see, collaborate and develop a set of shared best practices through discussion and chat for future practice and utilization, and co-create an innovative learning experience that generates relevant and salient tools for practice by discussion and leveraging unique experiences. So our agenda, we'll do an inclusion exercise soon. And like I said, we're going to share our experiences. And as we present, think about how you learned to make choices and how you help others make choices. And then we'll close with the reflection evaluation. And post-test, call something else. I probably should have erased that.
Post-test. We're post-testing you. Watch out, folks.
Oops.
It's all good.
Awesome. Community agreements. I'm a creature of habit. I always include something like this, like collaboration norms. Be open-minded and respect each other's opinions. Participate as an engaged learner. So we want to hear what you have to say. Take risks and try out ideas that get people to think in new ways. Build connections between ideas and think about both similarities and differences. Build off of others' comments. Take time to reflect before responding. So step forward, step back. So we truly want to collaborate with everyone involved today. So and then be yourself and have fun. And yeah, did I miss anything? That's good. Shall we add anything?
We want to have take a moment. I hope everybody's hearing me. We want to take a moment, Andrew. If there's anything that you want to add to this set of agreements as we get moving forward, we can definitely do that. And if you would like to add anything in the chat box, I'm keeping an eyeball on that, and we can edit the agreements if you want.
Cool, thank you. All right, so our first activities. So what brought you to our session today? Name, pronouns, your field background experience, and what about this session interested you?
So I think our plan was, and correct if I'm wrong, there's about 54 of us here, which is great. We have a really good group. And so taking the time for each person to go in at length about this in the whole group would be a bit time consuming. So our goal is going to be to break ourselves up into a session, into sessions of participants. And so Denia is working on this right now, and you will soon be in a subgroup, and we'll ask you to take about 30 seconds to share out what brought you to our session, where you're coming from, and then we'll come back to the group.
Mm-hmm. So let's do, so we have 51 participants, and I'm going to break everyone up into, let's do, so when we share out, maybe we'll have like 12 people share out from 12 different rooms. So it's going to be 4 per 5 participants per room. So have fun.
See you in a few.
Uh-oh. All right, did that work? I hope. Okay. go. All right, I'm gonna send out a message to everyone. All right, so I'm gonna close all rooms.
But it's the end of the meeting.
I apologize if we weren't clear on the instructions. So in the breakout sessions, you will not be communicating via text. It'd be talking out, sharing out. However, I understand, say you're in a situation where you maybe can't engage in that way, then feel free to use the chat. And so go ahead and share maybe something y'all talked about in the chat.
And you can unmute yourself to tell us. I don't know how many groups we had, and I don't know how they were numbered, but if you were in one of the groups who talked about through these things, maybe give us a couple sentences about some of the ways that some of the things that came up, and especially how they might have connected to the whole large concept of UDL.
Sorry, Carolyn. Did Carolyn want to go? Oh, okay. I'll go on. My name is Carla Harper. I'm an instructional designer from the University of Indianapolis, in Indiana, Indianapolis, Indiana. And I talked with Oscar, and I can't remember Oscar's last name. We both were instructional designers, and he's here. He's in California, but he's coming to refresh himself on the concept of UDL. And I am the university's Quality Matters Coordinator. I'm also a peer reviewer, and I also facilitate the APP-QMR classes to introduce our faculty to the process of QM process. But basically, UDL is the QM rubric, and I'm really excited. Oscar and I talked about the I feel like a lot of the concepts in universal design for learning applies in the rubric, and I'm fascinated. I've heard about it, learned a little bit about it a couple of years ago, but I am absolutely enthralled with all of this and want to learn as much as I can.
Awesome.
Good.
Cool.
Anyone else? Shall we go on? Okay. Well, I apologize for not making this full screen. I'm noticing, maybe it's because I have my little laptop. Leveraging the different, like the presentation, and then seeing the chat, and then doing the breakout session. I'm so sorry. Next time I will plug in another monitor. So our next slide is how do you model or frame choice making in your practice? So now that I think we got the breakout sessions down a little, or I do, we'll go ahead and do that one more time, and I'll probably limit the time a little bit more so, I guess. So let me do that really quick.
Yeah, and what I'm wondering, if you can dive in here, maybe now's a good time to actually go to not go into breakout sessions and for everybody to contribute a couple sentences about how we all do this, so that we can move into the other section of our presentation, which is us providing our examples and then circling back. So if everybody's willing to just dive in and go crazy in the chat room, a couple sentences, how do you model or frame choice making in your practice, whether you're working with students, whether you're working with faculty, how have you done it? And let's see what everybody has done.
Sounds good. Good stuff here. Nice. Yep. Nice. Yes. I like that guided choice a lot. Cool. All right. I'm gonna feel like I gotta launch the next.
Yeah, but I really love how everybody's starting to be very contributing in the chat. Please don't stop doing that. We will capture all that information and make it available to folks afterwards. So because part of the point here is to build our collective best practices. So thank you for diving in and telling us the things.
Yes,
okay,
definitely. Okay, I'll go back to making this present mode. I know, I almost said that too. Okay. All right, so captions. So our last little engagement before we dive in with our own experiences. So 2 sentences max each. Again, this could be a share out. You can unmute yourself and share out or use the chat. So What is this? And some of what you've shared thus far, I guess, includes this, which is great. So what does it look like in your field when learners are having trouble choosing? And how might you help learners move toward facility in choosing? Or how have you helped them toward facility in choosing?
I would say a lot of students in my experience are what I would call expert students rather than expert learners. They've perfected the art of doing what they need to do to get a grade, you know, and so forth. And oftentimes they're resistant to being given choices. They just want to know, what do you want from me so I can get the grade, right? And so one of the things I found to be helpful is to be very explicit about why I'm providing choice and what the goals are of not just the learning, the curriculum learning, but of learning to be expert learners. And sometimes that's enough to get through to them, that just this is where we're going, this is why we're doing that. And other times I find it's also helpful just to get them to articulate their decision-making process. So here are your options. Before you choose one, tell me why you're choosing it. And that's sometimes helpful in just getting their a foot in the door, to get them to think about why they would make a choice, and then they make the choice. It's very early executive functioning.
Mm-hmm. I'm definitely going to talk about that shortly from my experience. Yeah. Anyone else? Is there anything in the chat? I have to minimize the screen to look at the chat.
Someone's talking with students about their passions and what connection they see, which I think is a really nicely phrased point. In the end, this is back to the UDL principle of internal motivation, right? Which is, I think, one of the things that has been most fruitful for me in thinking about how to frame choice making with my students. Motivation is so important, particularly in required classes, I think.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, I guess we're gonna, shall we move on?
Yeah, let's keep going. Yep.
Okay. Oops. Okay, there we go. So that's little old me when I was a little drum major in high school. I mentioned my experiences through music because I feel like it informed my approach with teaching. I took what worked and I dodged, I don't do what didn't. You know, and I also studied music with the intention to pay it forward. It really changed the quality of my life. English language learner. I went to kindergarten in Mexico. We moved a lot when I was a child, so I had a hard time making friends. But when I joined band, I got my band friends. And my grades also improved. It did all kinds of great things for me. And I wanted to do that for somebody else. Let's see. So I ended up, like I said, studying music. Picture below is like, I call him my master teacher. When you decide to be a performance major, your relationship with your teacher is really important. I'm going to quote Andrew on this. He's like, you get to choose your mama duck. And I chose Dave Shostak because he's a very humble and kind human being, very talented and very active player in Los Angeles. So I didn't realize I always enjoyed music and I always worked really hard at it, but I didn't realize how difficult it was to major in music. Like, I spent hours and hours in the practice room. I mean, if he told me use vibrato there, don't use it there. I mean, I do as he says. Like, I didn't ask questions. So, however, I don't know if, I'm sure someone here has experience with music lessons and things like that. They're very directed, at least from my experience. Maybe not so much with Dave when I studied with him. So there were times where he was like, all right, if you want to do these orchestras, you need to know these excerpts. If you want to do this group, you have to have, know the first, 3 parts of this piece and just be prepared. And it's very like, this is what you need to do. There wasn't a lot of options, at least in the classical music world. So disciplined, which is great, hard work. However, issues developed, areas of perfectionism. feature heavy. You know, if I'm being told to do things a certain way, I better do them that way. Standard repertoire, auditions. I remember once I got called to play the Nutcracker principal flute, which was a great experience. But literally, I got told, like, oh, can you come to rehearsal tonight? And I had to sight read the part, and it was not hard, the first part. And then I remember the principal oboe player was like, well, be sure to learn the other parts, so when they call you next year. And I'm like, wow, I learned this music. And all of this kind of leads to like a dependency, like you need to learn this. If you want to do this, you must do that. And I don't want, I mean, the way, you know, Andrea and I have talked about it is you kind of get choice making trained out of you, because you just start even getting directed. You want to do this, this is what you have to do. It's like, aren't there other ways to get there? And at least in my experience, I don't feel like I really had that many options. So as a, you know, private instructor, most of the students I have are relatively young, and they, like Eric was saying earlier, they just want you to tell them what to do. Like, just don't, you know, I don't want to think. And sometimes I'll be there like, no, I'd like you to decide, or I'll maybe kind of break it up and, okay, I'll pick this, but the next time you have to decide, or something like that. I make sure we make decisions together. I let them know that I'm always learning from them. I find that the trust building is really key and important, especially on one-on-one instruction. I try to empower them as much as I can by offering options. I always start all our work together, like, what is your goal today? I want them thinking about where they want to walk away with, relationship-based. And yeah, I just try to guide them, like, not this is what you need to do, but what do you care about? And let's figure out how we get there together. So I wanted to make sure I included the checkpoints in here. So this is from the guidelines, which I think was in slide 2, if you want to look at that. This is part of the principle of multiple means of engagement, checkpoint 7.1. So encouraging individual choice and autonomy. And there's great descriptions, but I won't get into all that now, but it's on the slide if you want to read it, and if you're not familiar with it. So again, moving away from teacher heavy to more of a mentorship, building relationship. That's really my goal. This is one of my previous students who were playing a duet at a recital, offering options with goal setting, with the different technique they have to learn. I try to make it as fun as possible. If, say, their goal is, oh, I really want to make this honor group, and they have to learn the standard repertoire. So I'll make sure, you know, we do what we got to do, but you know, maybe we'll play like some Star Wars duets after, or something just fun. So they have something to work towards and look forward to. I offer breaks if they need it. I make them resources. I try to make their experience a lot more fluid than my experience was. And not that it was a negative experience, it's just, it informed me to be the type of teacher that I think could be beneficial for others. Here's another checkpoint. This one's from multiple means of action expression. So supporting planning and strategy development. I have them write in a notebook. Do you want me to write this fingering down? Do you think you'll remember this? What about this? Oh, I'll remember that. No, please write it down. I try to interact with them as much as possible and not just be like dictator flute teacher. Heightened salience of goals and objectives. Again, everything is very intentional in our work together. And what else? We got another one from action expression, enhanced capacity for monitoring progress. I like to outline things like, okay, so this is your goal. Your performance is in March. We need to, by February, we have to rehearse with the pianist. So what can I do for you do you need reminders? Should we write it down? Do you want to do a practice chart? Some students just hate the practice chart, and some of them, like, they want it. They start kind of developing their learning preferences, and by letting me know, like, this works for me, please write it down. Thank you, you know, for mentioning it. Let's see. Oh, this is very silly. This little boy is Ben. He's super cute. He saw me play the flute once, and he said he wanted to learn. So anyone can learn. The flute is too big for him. He definitely needs a curved head joint. I found out later from grandma, the instrument he truly wants to learn is the piccolo, but It's okay, Ben. Just keep growing, develop those lungs. We'll get there. So that all said, our next activity. So what is your experience with facilitating choice making in one-to-one mentorship? And as a mentor or as a mentee, and from your perspective, how does that align with the UDL principles focusing on choice making? And you can go ahead, you can take a look at the guidelines if you want. So you can share out, write something in the chat.
Tina, do you think it would be useful at this point to throw us out into groups again?
Sure, let's, I'm gonna,
maybe 5 minutes or so.
sure, I'm gonna throw y'all into some groups. Let me get that going. Breakout groups. I'm just curious. It says it's sharing my screen, navigating the breakout groups right now. No? Yes? No, probably not. Okay.
I'm not seeing, no, I'm just seeing the screen from your presentation.
From the PowerPoint. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Just curious. All right.
Here we go. Breakout 10.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I like to run.
How'd it go, y'all?
I'm wondering, I don't know if the captions are.
Sounds good.
Oh, you got
Denia, I'm going to be mean and I'm going to keep us going
no, that's fine.
because it's almost quarter till. I don't know if people are seeing my screen that I'm trying to share right now.
I think so. I see it, so I'm pretty sure.
Okay, good. If people, if anybody does not see the screen that I'm sharing right now through the presentation, you can absolutely unmute yourself and tell me. For some reason, I was trying to get the transcript happening in the Google presentation, but it's not working the way, the captions aren't working the way I expected them to. So I apologize with folks if you're not seeing transcription at this point. So I'm going to try to speak slowly enough and concisely enough so that
the transcription doesn't show up yet. You know what, you guys, some of it, because it's like Google Voice, some of the transcription, it doesn't always capture text right away. So, oh, there it is. I see the bar. It showed up a moment ago. I see it.
Right. The bar is there, but the words aren't coming, and I don't know why.
Do you want me to check with it? Do you want me to check with somebody on the tech side? Just send me a quick email. Okay.
Please, if you don't mind.
No, certainly not.
It may be a situation. I don't know if, as co-presenter, there's a different set of privileges that I get on the presentation. So again, I apologize, and if somebody has figured out how I can get the captions going, I appreciate it. My understanding is that there is somebody who is captioning in a separate space, and I apologize because we also realize that, and that if you only have one screen, you might not be able to see the transcription of the caption.
You know what? I just emailed Eric. I mean, I have 10, 15 screens open. Not good. That's what you get with a large screen. I can't brace myself, but I just emailed him, and I said it's the UDL scaffolding music presentation, and we see the bar, but for some reason when you press the CC, it doesn't work, so the captions don't show up. So I alerted him. Yeah, and I think he was in this group too, so we'll find out what's going on.
He was. He'll come back. Thank you. So I'm going to push on again. As I was saying, if people need to follow the captions, I apologize, but there is that separate document in which the captions are being provided by somebody. So unfortunately, until we get this sorted out, you will not be able to see. You'll be able to choose either captions or the presentation. I'm going to be more concise here. I'm not going to give you my my lead up to this, but I wanted to take a little bit of time on the question of choice making in a larger classroom. So we talked about mentoring, and now the question is, in a larger classroom, what does choice making look like? And just very briefly, contextually, still on the field of music, but now on the field of music history, it is customary for all music students and many also non-music students to take courses that are historically, by the way, whoever has their mic on, there's somebody else who has a microphone on, and I'd appreciate if they turn it off because there's background noise. Thank you. Thank you. So the question is, in these classrooms, can we give choice to our students if we're supposed to teach them a thing? One of the things about any sort of curriculum that's standardized is that in theory, we're supposed to cover material. And so when we're supposed to cover material, the instructor is given authority over what is supposed to be covered, the repertory we're going to discuss, the kinds of assignments that students might do, the projects that they might create, because those are standardized in some way within the curriculum. So what latitude do we have over what students might end up with? What are the possible options? What are the downsides? People in the chat were talking earlier about the question of students not feeling disempowered to choose because they believe that there's something they need to learn. And can we open up the space for them learning in a more flexible way? So just to, I'll cut out of this and go into this PDF area here. I have, for anybody who's interested, this is the course that I'm leading, that I'm going to be telling you just a very little bit about. And part of what the students are choosing are a set of options, and let me scroll down here to later in the syllabus, where, for example, there's a capstone project where the students can choose 4 different ways of demonstrating their skills to a capstone. One is a fairly standard research paper, which is the kind of thing that I had to do as an undergraduate, that I was doing with this class for many, many, many years because that's what was expected. But now, talking to some colleagues, we were thinking that playing music is the way musicians learn. And so is there a way through performance that we can achieve some of the same concepts? Is there a way through creating new music that relates to music of previous times, so we can do the same thing? Or can the students choose their own adventure? And I'll tell you, I'll just briefly refer to this, that most of the students do choose either the performance or the research paper because they know it. Some of them do choose the composition project. And then every semester, out of about 80 students in the class, 1 or 2 students or student groups choose to make your own adventure. This semester, I have a pair of students who are going to be doing a little vlog, a little video blog. Most of the time, students don't want to choose. And so somebody had asked earlier in the chat, well, what if students don't have the bandwidth to choose? If they don't have the bandwidth to choose, there are ready-made options for them that they don't have to go too far afield in choosing for this particular project. But also every session, and this now, for those who are following on the presentation, every session, the students are doing something before class. So this actually, sorry, let me go backwards here, pre-class. So before every class, students are asked to, students are asked to make choices about what they will do to prepare for class. They can either read the textbook, or they can listen to a couple of video lectures, short video lectures that I've made that go over material that's similar to the textbook, but not quite the same. Some students will feel like listening to the lecture. Some folks will prefer to read the textbook. All of them have to look at the anthology, and then beyond that first chunk of assignment, they, in the second part of the assignment, they are asked to choose from a series of possible additional readings or other listenings outside of the textbook. So the goal of this piece of the exercise is to get the students to not rely on the textbook as the one story that they should learn, but instead to know that there are other stories to be told. And we talk a lot about how history and music is the telling of many different kinds of stories, some of which are made standard, some of which are made not made so. And some of these possible assignments are readings, are essays, but other times I'll have videos that they can watch. And so again, depending on the student's mood, depending on their interest in the topic, they can choose what they should do before class. The main piece that I want to dwell on, though, is this end of unit assignment that I call Make Your Own Canon. And this is something that I've tried for the second time this year. I tried it the first time last year. It worked really, really well. The standard way to test knowledge in a music history class is to play short excerpts of a musical piece and have the students recognize the piece and talk about, give information about the music and so forth. So it's an identification memorization exercise. And I, myself, struggle with those mightily for the entirety of my education. And in the end, I was thinking recently, what's the point? What is the actual usability of that kind of skill as a student moves on beyond that course? And so instead of moving into this idea that students should be thinking about how they choose music to represent certain kinds of styles, certain kinds of traditions. And so they look at their anthology, and you can see in the description here, they choose an example composed before a certain date, they describe it, so that is a factual check. And then they're supposed to compare it to another example in the anthology. And in addition to these 3 that are from the anthology, they ask them to choose a 4th that's outside of the anthology itself. And the goal is to get them to realize that the anthology is a somewhat arbitrary set of pieces chosen to tell a certain kind of story, and that they have the option of telling other stories themselves. That's, I guess, the short of what all this is about. I guess the final thing I want to show you is, let me see. So I've just sent this survey out. I don't yet have results, but I've asked the students to complete a survey on Canvas, and I hope this is visible enough to you all, where they're telling me whether making choices has been productive to their motivation and to their learning. And then I'm asking specifically about what kinds of sources they've chosen for this last exercise, where they're choosing their own piece out of the infinity of options and opportunities that are out on the internet. And I'm starting to get some responses in, and once my RB is all set up, I will be able to report out on that. The point here being that this is a way of scaffolding, presenting choices, giving some ways to choose, but also giving some ways that are consistent. And my experience, since people have asked about students being overwhelmed, my experience is that some students take to it very quickly, and others, as Eric had put in the chat earlier, have to have the unlearning to make choices unlearned again. That is to say, when they were young, they made choices all the time, but then they were told that certain things have to be the way they are. And this is similar to Denia's example, except now in a classroom context where you are told what you need to learn and what you need to give back. I do have students who tell me, just tell me what I need to tell you, and I'll tell it back to you. And I'm obnoxious to them, and I say, no, that's not the way it works. This is really about you deciding what's important and you convincing me what's important, because in the end, that's going to be a much more useful skill for you to move forward with. So that's my piece of the story. And I will unshare so that we can go back into the other piece of the, because I know we're almost out of time, and I want to see if we can do this, at least a chunk of our last exercise plan. What do you think?
Yeah, should we just jump there to the last one?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Yep.
Okay, so I guess I'll share my screen again. We're gonna utilize there's the Zoom. We're gonna utilize technology that I really, really like called Padlet. And I heard this a couple times in other sessions today that's been used a lot and brought up a lot. Yes, I love Padlet too. So here's the link for it. I'll put it in the chat as well. We encourage you to develop a 2 to 3 sentence pitch on why learning through choices is beneficial and how you are going to facilitate that. So you could just click on the link. I'm assuming it's showing my webpage, right? Yeah. Okay, and then this.
Yep, it's there. It's good.
Okay, cool. Oh, W, yay for win, right? Oh, my bad, without choice. So for those who haven't used it, it's relatively simple. You click here to add a response. My favorite part is the ... because you can upload something from your computer, share a link, a website perhaps. You could film a video, take a picture, record your voice, record your screen, draw a picture. Oh my God, options, it's so UDL. So if you have any questions, let me know, and I look forward to seeing what y'all got.
Yay.
Respect your learners.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I find that so important. Even now as a student, if like a professor, I don't want to say invalidate something, but you know, it's enough, depending on how confident I feel, it can actually, you know, I don't know, hold me back. But yeah. It is awesome. yes, as we wrap up, are any final thoughts? Andrew, any final questions? I put our emails and our Twitter handles on the chat if you want to stay in touch. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll put the notes, the Google Notes document in the chat again, just in case folks hadn't had lost track of it. So this is we have a couple of links to this document here, as well as a link to there as well. And of course, please don't hesitate to keep populating the Padlet. And what we will do is, if anybody who wants to save the chat, somebody had pointed out there's a dot at the bottom of the chat where you can save it to your own machine. Denia and I will go through it after the fact and digest it a bit, and probably put a digest of it at the bottom of the Google document that we have up, the one that I just linked to, so that if folks want to see a digest, we'll have that too.
Cool. I just saved it right now. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.